dream, and I thought it true concerning Franklin and his gallant crew. With 100 seamen he sailed away to the frozen ocean in the month of May to seek a passage around the pole. But we poor seamen do sometimes go.
My first memory of fishing when I go back is going out on my father's boat, laying on the engine box, sleeping. That's what I used to do. So I used to curl up, and it was always at a slope, and I used to have to rest just right, so because he had his exhaust wrapped, so his exhaust would kind of hold me up on the engine box, and it was an old 671 Detroit diesel, and it rattled and loud, but boy, I'd sleep like a baby. So it was something that was a part of my family, and I always, do have some passion for it, you know what I mean? It just kind of was grown into me, I guess, as I grew up.
I mean, we used to have Sandy Cove. There was no houses there. I mean, that's where everybody went. You walk down, because they didn't, I can't remember now who the owner, well, I know Mr. Hatch was the owner at one time. Didn't want anybody to drive down. So you walked, and I mean, every day the summertime you went down there, and it was mostly for harbor people. It was wonderful. It was clearly a lot quieter as far as traffic. I mean, you could walk up and down the road and never see a car, that type of thing. The general stores, both general stores here in the harbor, Watson's and Holbrook's, they were both like really the hub of activity. Especially now that I've been in business 26 years, people pass and, they'll come in and say, that mother or father died, and you knew these people, and it's very sad. I always share tears with, because these were nice people, but that's the beauty of it too, and getting to know them in the beginning.
There's 3 or 4 major families within Cundys, and they all have burrowed roots deep, within the community, and the younger generation is continuing that trend.
And now I see my grandchildren getting into lobster, and even grandsons and granddaughters. So that's fun to see. And like my grandson Caleb, seeing him out he's in his own open boat, and it's like a replica of his father. Seeing him growing up and being out on the harbor, hauling traps and without realizing it, as like Corey and Gary as young children lobstering, you realize that the other adult fishermen, they watched out for them, to be sure that they were safe, didn't hesitate to maybe get after them if they were doing something unsafe, like, come on, smarten up. But, it just was a built-in knowledge that they learned from being out there with adults, working alongside adults too, as young children.
I had a little 14-foot skiff with actually it was a 10-foot skiff, a little gray skiff. And at first, I had to paddle around here in the harbor to haul my 6 or 10 traps, and then I grew into a 14-foot skiff, and that one had an outboard. We had a little 9.9 Mariner on that one, and you know, progressed from there.
Well, one time I went out on the boat with him, and I'll never forget it. He was, he's probably 6 or 7, something like that, and he was hauling a few traps out here in the harbor. And, you know, and the law is if you don't have a license, you can't touch the trap. So I didn't have a license, so, you know, I was thinking, oh, I'm going to, you know, kind of teach him one of those lessons of, well, I don't have a license. Because he said, Mom, could you give me a hand? Nope. Don't have a license. He says, I think back now, he's this little kid, you know, hauling up this, at the time it was a wooden trap, so they're heavy and whatever, and struggling to get it over the side of the skiff. But, you know, so whether I didn't help him in that, I might have hindered his growth, maybe, I don't know.
I'm pretty grateful that, you know, I was fortunate enough to grow up in this community and be a part of it. And, you know, to have the fishing heritage, you know, to go along with it. And, you know, we are very fortunate to have the community, you know, that we do. You know what I mean? I couldn't ask for a better place to have been raised. And so it's been very fortunate, very grateful for that, for sure.
The fate of Franklin, no man may know. The fate of Franklin, no tongue can tell. Lord Franklin with his sailors dwell.
I can remember going out one morning. We counted 97 sets of lights. So there was 97 boats within eyesight. This was before sunrise, so you could see them all.
Resilience is vital to the success of coastal Maine's fishing industry. Fishing families need to be able to adapt to the constant changes that come along with the industry. In the recent years, there have been many changes that not only threaten economies and families, but for many, what's been a way of life for decades.
It's significant, you know, the changes that have gone on. This Cundys Harbor used to be primarily a ground fishing harbor, you know, as many of them were years ago. Lobstering really, it wasn't the same as it is today.
The fishermen have gone back to the staple of the fisheries now, which is the lobsters.
In the constantly changing environment that is the fishing industry, fishermen are forced to adapt in many ways.
As far as adaptability, you've got to be able to. There's no question about it. The circumstances, the environment you're working in, the change of the tides during the month, during the day. So we had to develop a fishery of our own and an outlet of our own. We did that.
One of the largest issues in the fishing industry is change. Things are destined to change with regulations, fishing access, and community when you're a fisherman.
The access to the water is going to be choked off. Those people are going to set up and say, oh, I don't like the smell of that bait in the summertime. I don't like the sound of the boats coming in early in the morning. They wake me up. So they're going to get themselves put on committees that are going to change the rules. And the fishermen are busy constantly trying to make a living, so they can't sit on the same committees that these folks will get themselves appointed to. that make the decisions and the policies?
I try to attend, a lot of the meetings. It's hard being the younger person coming up and not being as established, I guess, in life to be available for the meetings. You know what I mean? Even though they're probably some of the most important parts is being there and being present and voicing your opinion.
Things have changed in the sense that my wife and I lived in that cottage during the first year of our marriage. There was no insulation. There was no storm windows. There was no running water. The running water was me with 2 10-quart pails down to a well down the road. We heated our water on the stove. We washed our clothes in a washing machine. And it was all provided with 2 10-quart pails.
I don't know where to go.
Things have changed.
I'm on a search for a new home. There are cars everywhere, and my paws can't escape.
Many of the older fishing generation see their way of life dying out, but the younger generation of fishermen are finding optimism in their little victories as they learn to innovate to transcend challenging changes.
Honestly, I'll show you innovation. It's hanging right out there. That is something that a couple of us guys have started to do. It's versus having the block, having the hauler right out, like as the block. It saves on your back, it saves on your shoulders. It does the work for you. It's less tension on your rope. It's not coming up through too many pulleys. It keeps the rope away from the side of the boat. It's like, and did I invent it? Absolutely not, but it works. There's not many boats traditionally that are set up like that, and I love it. I won't ever rig another boat any other way, I can tell you that. So.
Fishermen, in a way, are married to the ocean, and their partner is part of a natural system that experiences constant change.
So stuff has changed significantly, and with the fisheries as well. It seems to be, there's always one primary dominant species, that we fish with, and everything's in a cycle, it's, just in my short time fishing, you see these cycles come and go.
As you can see, commercial fishing regulations shifts along with the ocean. Not only fishermen have to innovate, but sometimes entire families are forced to adapt to evolving regulation.
And the women saw regulations starting to come down the road, whereas prior they really hadn't had that kind of, and the councils were being developed. the Maine, New England Fisheries Management Councils and councils across the United States. So they decided to be proactive for their husbands and start to get involved so that their husbands would know what was going on in the regulatory world.
Like changing regulations, technology evolves as well. This new generation of fishermen are tackling old problems with new technology.
A lot of the old timers used to go by certain landmarks. They'd line up sides of the islands, and if you held that barren or kept that in sight for X amount of minutes or whatever, you know, I mean, back in the old days, it used to be time and course. That's how they navigated. Because it's a lot of computers and stuff these days, so as far as navigating, you know, on the foggy days, we don't have to stop and shut the boat off and listen for a bell, you know what I mean, to know which one it is, or, you know, we have a lot of technology, you know, that we depend on and rely on. Probably if you threw me back in the 60s and 70s, you know, prior to a lot of the electronics, I probably wouldn't be a very good fisherman. So we're always trying to make things easier or better, or, you know, or venture off in different areas, and, you know, so we're pretty creative, a lot of us, you know, and not necessarily me, but I'll watch and see what somebody else is doing and modify it or try it or whatever, you know. I'm not closed-minded to different things. I'm not necessarily an innovator myself, but I'm an overviewer of what's going on around me, you know, so.